Hawks was flying above the city when someone caught his eye. She must have noticed his gaze because she started looking around, and the pair of eyes met his. Hawks landed in front of her and said, "Hey." The woman smiled softly and said, "Hi." Hawks smirked and put his hands behind his head and said, "You busy? I'd love to take you out for a bite." She just looked at Hawks like he was dumb and said, "Hawks, you're on patrol." He groaned and said, "Come on. It's not like I'm busy. If anything, it'll just be like some low-level thug and another hero can take care of it." The woman rolled her eyes and said, "I'm on patrol too." Hawks winked and said, "Let's take a 5-minute break. I'm bored, or I can go ask someone else." She just scoffed and said, "Fine, let's go." Hawks grabbed her hand and walked around for a while, talking. She was really tense the whole time, and Hawks understood why. People were talking, taking images, and the media was watching. You could tell the woman was about to reach her breaking point, so Hawks grabbed her by the waist and shot up into the air. The bear flew for a minute and landed on a building. Once Hawks set her down, she went into the crouching position and yelled really loudly. Too loud. Hawks just sighed and said, "Tell the media will always be watching, listener, and that's okay. It gives us hero more ranking." Listener stood up and said, "The media is going overboard. Look." She held out her phone and took pictures and looked at the pictures of them together, who were already circling the web. Hawk smiled and looked at the pictures and said, "I don't get what the big deal is. We look cute in all of these. And look, positive comments." She clicked on the comment that showed Hawks one and read, "The overload hero doesn't deserve Hawks. She's not even that pretty." Listener jammed her phone back into her pocket and grumbled something along the lines of, "Jealous fangirl." Hawks laughed and said, "Just ignore it. That's what happens when you get the most attractive hero." Listener just sighed and walked off the edge of the building. Listener landed on the ground immaculately and waited for Hawks. Once he floated down, she said, "We've had well over 5 minutes of a break. I'll text you when I'm off." She began walking away when a few of Hawk's smaller feathers dragged her back to him. He hugged Listener from behind and she went limp in his arms. He chuckled and kissed her temple, then stood Listener upright and said, "You gotta give me a kiss back, Listener." Smiled and decided to humor him. She kissed him on his cheek, nose, and then lips, then walked away and waved to Hawks. Once he was gone, Listener began glaring at the passbyers who were watching and taking photos. They quickly got scared and sped away. Listener rolled her eyes and continued walking down the busy street. She soon found a little kid crying by a small street sign, so walked up to him and asked, "Hey kiddo, why are you crying?" The kid looked up and to her and his eyes widened. You're Overlord." Listener nodded and said, "Yeah, I'm a pro hero, and I'm here to help you." The kid's smile faded and more tears rolled down his cheeks. Listener crouched down in front of him and said, "Kid, do you want to be a hero when you grow up?" The kid wiped his eyes and nodded, so Listener smiled and said, "And you gotta be brave and tell me what's troubling you." The kid wiped his nose and said, There was a crown and I lost my mum." He started crying harder, so the hero pulled the kid into a hug. "Thanks for telling me. Now, let's find your mum. I promised I'll keep you safe until we find her. Can you tell me what she looks like?" The kid clung to her and said, "Yeah, she's really pretty, and she has black hair and a blue dress." Listener nodded and picked up the kid. He wrapped his legs around her waist and continued to walk down around with him for a few while. Finally, the pro hero came across 2 officers talking to a very upset woman who matched the description of the kid's mum. "Hey!" Listener ran over to them, catching their attention. The woman put her hands over her mouth and started crying. "Hey, is this your mum?" Listener asked the kid. He looked up to the woman and practically flew out of Listener's arms. "Mum!" The woman took the kid and said, "Jin, don't you ever run off. You scared me." Listener turned to the officer and said, "Good day," then bowed and walked away. The hero turned back to the woman as she stood up and bowed very low while repeatedly saying, "Thank you so much for finding my little Jin. I hope it didn't trouble you." Listener chuckled nervously and said, "No, not at all, ma'am. Just doing my job of keeping peace." The woman straightened her form and asked, I'm sorry, but can we get a picture with you? I want Jin to remember this forever." The listener gleefully nodded, and the mother took a picture of the 3. "Thank you again." The young hero walked away and said, "No problem." Suddenly, as the listener turned a corner, she bumped into someone. I'm sorry, I can be so clumsy sometimes." She apologized and looked to the tall figure to see Hawks. Then she shouted, "Hawks!" He just laughed and said, Sorry, baby, you know I can sense you with fierce wings. Listener punched Hawk's chest playfully and asked, were you, like, obsessed with me to follow me all the way over here? Hawk just shrugged and said, what can I say? When I see you getting all lovely with kids, I can't help but observe how gentle you are. Hawk smiled gently and gazed into Listener's soft eyes, and continued, don't worry, Songbird. Once we get our own place, we can have a kid of our own. The pair of heroes began walking up to the patrol route when finally Listener spoke up. That would be nice, Hawks.